Good evening. I'm going to have a proposal. Um, we'll finish up probably this interlude section tonight. I'm going to propose that you take a break from this, and I will keep working on the upcoming chapters. And my proposal is that you uh, together, and I don't think we've done this actually, share a reading of the Vimalakirti Sutra and then Joan Sutherland's beautiful book, Vimalakirti and the Awakened Heart. We haven't read that, have we?
Well, no, Lori did a course on it, so I read, in fact I wrote right there. But anyway, I'm perfectly up for that. It's
There's,
beautiful.
I can give you all the sources that are the sort of the central sources for the Vimalakirti, which is available in PDF format online.
I
So
have the PDF.
yeah, yeah, that and I think that would be a good way um, to spend some time, especially because Vimalakirti is sort of our kind of patron bodhisattva who is a householder and successful in the world and just it's such a wonderful sutra. But if you have
Well,
another thought,
also in terms of Jess, who's
yeah,
here,
exactly.
I've been talking a lot about what lay practice is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a good thing to revisit periodically because it's so central in our tradition. And the Joan Sutherland's book is exquisite. It's such a beautiful book. So,
That
what do
will
you?
take a while because this what is it? Because it why is it like 100 pages?
The sutra?
Maybe this is a book about. Oh, this is Robert Thurman's.
Yeah, I like that version a lot. I like his version, although he later said, I mean, he said like 30 years after the fact, he said, I think I would do things differently with that book. You know, I think that was one of his first translation projects.
Oh, 1976. It says.
Yeah. And so, and Burton Watson's is from 1925, which is the original earliest translation, I think, of the Vimalakirti.
Well, do you think we should do Joan Sutherland's?
Well, I think I would read the sutra first and then read Joan Sutherland because it's a sort of a commentary on the sutra.
Okay, so I'll have to find the sutra just by itself.
I can give you sources for that.
I'm sure I can find it.
Yeah, yeah. And then and that would sort of catch me up a little bit so I can work on these chapters. I'm primarily worried about layouts now, you know, and in the chapters that I have. So I have the draft up through chapter 16, and I have chapter 18. Is that right? Through chapter 16. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot that's written but isn't laid out yet. So that's what I have to work on. Yeah, trying to get people to respond with a bit of their own reflections. So yeah, so I have to provide some encouragement. Okay. All
Anne
right.
is being very quiet about this proposal.
Um, it sounds fine.
Seems okay.
Yeah.
The other things, there are other things we could do. We could plunge into some Dogen fascicles and um, being time or mountains and rivers. Uh, those are also very generative. And I don't think we've done that in depth and practice. So is there something that most appeals to you?
Well, we were doing the koans.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you finish that?
No, no, no.
Oh, well, you could continue with the koans.
But I'm fine. Doing Vima Lakirti is fine. What do you think, Anne?
Yeah, it seems like it's a blank slate, really. We could do whatever. I know we had talked, I can't remember if it was this group or the council that talked about what would be next. What
Yeah.
would we read next?
Mhm.
And I don't remember that there was anything that rose to the top, as, yeah, everybody said this. So,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, either one of those things I think would be fine. I think, studying a sutra is a good idea. And I like Joan Sutherland's writing, so.
Have you read this book?
Not that book, no.
I think you will love it.
Mm.
It's so inspiring and so beautifully written. Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but we probably will finish up this part tonight. And even if you want to talk about it next week, what should come next, if you have thoughts about it in between, that's another possibility.
Well, we're going to start this new thing next week, though, right?
Well, oftentimes in between, we have a little short sort of discussion and sort of integrating what we have read and sort of
Oh, okay.
thinking about what the next thing is. So, and it gives people a little bit of a chance to get it if they want. Yeah. Anyway,
Can you share, Peg?
yeah, I need to share because I did some layouts and I haven't posted any of that entirely yet. So I will do that. I think this is the page we were on. The page numbers have changed, so it's not now the same page numbers, but I think this is where we were.
Do we give a hint to Jess about what this is about?
Yeah. This interlude, Jess, is sort of the notes I made from a session that I was in with Kosho. When I was on the Dharma transmission path, and I wanted to support him, and I wanted to do a session where I was like a passenger instead of the captain, um, and and so this is the sort of the report of it. This is about day 5, so there's 5 days ahead of this, so you're coming in sort of in the middle of things, but and I don't know how else to explain it. What do you think, Kim?
I think that's fine, except that in the beginning of the session, you had some very negative feelings,
Oh, yes.
and and you're
Yeah,
working through those, and the teacher completely understood those.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was very dire in the beginning. Yeah. Well, let's see where we go, and then uh, if you are interested, Jess, I can get the earlier parts to you, the earlier part of this, if you're interested.
I think we had finished through this page. I remember the question, what about Flint?
Oh, okay. So are we on this page?
I remember reading about very large in a grandiose way.
Uh-huh. Okay, so maybe it's
As long
here.
as long Champa. It's a lucid dream. It's easy to never understand now.
Yeah, I think we're at this page because I think I remember the play of experience was on this page.
And I asked them, oh, this is all a projection. What do you think mind is?
Yeah, well, this is the page we're just starting.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember having read this.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Is it really all just the dazzling play of energy, information, and relation across the entire cosmos, chilocosms of chilocosms? When I asked them if this is all just projection of the mind, they said, what do you think mind is? Wiring in the brain? Chemicals reacting to each other? Where do you think mind originally comes from? It is this vast universal creativity expressing itself through these forms and these very thoughts, perceptions, emotions, experiences, relations. I said, well, why do we keep starting over? They seemed to think this was kind of a dumb question. Why do we get a fresh rosebud when we've had one before? What makes this unfolding into blossom just as satisfying? Why do we still have spring in Ireland and the glory of fall foliage in New England year after year? Reality moves in cycles, and we cherish the return of the patterns we feel resonant with.
So we go in alphabetical order, Jess. So you would be next. We just read like a paragraph.
My head feels like it is going to explode. This afternoon, they said the training on patience and steadfastness in stillness continues. The training sessions are only a half hour long and they're interspersed with other activities, meals, exercise, etc. So you should be able to manage them. I asked, well, how long will this training take? Naturally, they responded with admirable wit until you stop asking that. I don't think I am crazy, and Kay doesn't seem to think so, unless he is really humoring me. What do you think?
So we should read probably the facing page at this point, Kim.
The play of experience. All experience and life forms cannot be proven to exist independently of there being a presence before your mind. Just like a lucid dream. All that is has me, universal creativity, pure and total presence at this root. How things appear is my being. How things arise is my manifestation. Sounds and words heard are my messages and expressed in sounds and forms and words. All the capacities, forms, and pristine awarenesses of the Buddhas, the bodies of sentient beings, their habituations, no, how do you say,
Situations.
and so forth. All environments and their inhabitants, life forms and experiences are the primordial state of pure and total presence. Longchenpa, 1308 to 1363, you are the eyes of the world, translated by Kennard Lipman and Merrill Peterson.
Day 5, afternoon, the multiverse. At home, I had said this out loud in the Zendo, in Zazen, in the Zendo. Mind talking to mind, it's almost comical. What could mind possibly tell mind that mind doesn't already know? It's like a toddler telling its mother, I drank my milk. That's a tree. Here's a rock. But the mother doesn't look at the milk, the tree, the rock. She looks as a child to see, is he healthy? Is he happy? Is he growing and learning? So you should look at the mind, its quality of well-being, functioning, and developing, not at the objects of mind.
Okay, this is a lot. For this afternoon, however, I will practice stillness. I learned this morning that every concoction from stillness creates pain in the body. But I am not trying to avoid pain. I am trying to cultivate that which will benefit others, stillness. Even great masters of music continue their practice of the basics. Stillness of mind, heart, and body is the most elementary instruction in Zen and the most stable, subtle to attain. As I was leaving the house, I grabbed the Musong's translation of the Diamond Sutra because I remembered some passage that seemed relevant right now. During work period, I opened the book and found the passages.
Uh, verse 13, Buddha said, Subhati, what do you think? Are all the specks of dust in the billion world system of a universe many? Subhuti said, many Bhagavan, many Bhavagan, uh, yeah, um, okay. Many Bhagavan, the specks of dust are many, Sugata, and how so? Because Bhagavan, what the Tathagata says is a speck of dust, Bhagavan. The Tathagata says is no speck. Thus, is it called a speck of dust? Is it called a speck of dust? And what the Tathagata says is a world system. The Tathagata says is no system. Thus it is called a world system.
Verse 14. The Buddha tells Subhuti, those beings shall be most remarkably blessed, Subhuti, who are not alarmed, not frightened, and not distressed by what is said in the sutra. And, Subhuti, what do you think? If a son and daughter were to grind as many world systems as there are particles of dust in the 3,000 kilocosms, as finely as they can be ground with incalculable vigor, would that be an enormous collection of dust particles?
Long before the invention of the telescope, before quantum mechanics and astrophysics, space travel, and even science fiction, the Buddha was teaching about the existence of multiple universes. And at the end of the Diamond Sutra, he says, so you should see all of the fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in the stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, or a dream.
Day 6, practice stillness. At Sesshin, the practice instruction from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas was practice stillness without concocting anything. Not so easy to do, since the first thing I did was look for similes and metaphors. It's like the moment right before you fall asleep, or images, and hang them after the blizzard, when the wind stopped completely, and the last few snowflakes were hanging in the air like tiny dancing lights in the sun, and all was utterly still. Things to do: correct my posture, remind myself to write a letter of recommendation, or fire up some memories. I thought, my mind is like a hyperactive toddler, running around, getting into everything, and asking a million questions. A simile.
They commented, no, it's not. You're an adult with the capacity to quiet the mind. It's so hard, I said, hence practice. I was really struggling for some reason. So they said, don't do it because you're supposed to. Do it to support others. Oh, I thought, and immediately settled. Kay's Dharma talk was about the mantra at the end of the Heart Sutra, and he had us chant it together over and over for about 20 minutes. Then, when we stopped, there was just stillness and silence.
Here I struggled late in the day, though, with my own mind and body challenges. Even though I knew I was causing my own disturbances, it was no help. I knew it was fear-based agitation. based on the intensity of what I'd been experiencing. I realized this is like being afraid of shadow puppets you are creating with your own hands. But still, I was struggling like any beginner. The second evening period, I sat with my knees up, resting them. I started the week with a powerful sinus infection, and with my knees not yet fully mended from my fall a few weeks ago. I was feeling the toll of all that cold, drizzly weather outside, and no midday walk. I feared the return of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas.
It's me, right? Day 7, the blade of grass. This morning was bright, sunny, and warmer. I was instructed to sit in mindfulness of breathing as the Buddha had done. As usual, I began controlling the breath, raising the question of whether I can observe something without arousing the impulse to control it. I thought first of that image of the last moment before falling asleep, but a better image came to me, as if your child has been terribly ill but now is recovering. You sit by his bedside observing his easy breathing as he sleeps, filled with calm and gratitude. From time to time, a doctor will pop in to ask, has there been any change in the breathing? So you must pay very close attention. I prefer to think of it as mindfulness of breathing, a process, rather than mindfulness of the breath, which makes it into a succession of things, short things, long things, shallow or deep things. Rather, watch the flow, its eddies and currents, and you will be without gasping or grasping, without expectations about how it should be. I thought, breathing in the sky, breathing out stars, planets, galaxies. The time swiftly passed, and I sat in peace and ease.
The head student's Dharma talk once again told the story of the Buddha walking with the assembly and Indra plucking the blade of grass. And then he talked about Indra offering us the whole world in all its splendor. But his talk wasn't really about that story. Still, the return of the story, completely irrelevant to the rest of the talk, was a reminder from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And I got it. But I was struck by something else, something that had not crossed my mind before, something that was definitely not in my plans. It was time for me to retire from UT.
We did, oh, sorry, Jess.
We did the Buddha's enlightenment ceremony, a joyful celebration, circumambulating the zendo, throwing confetti, and chanting the Maka Hanya Haramita Shingyo. Since I was throwing confetti, I could not look at the chant, but I was surprised to find I mostly remembered it all, and I was helped by the others chanting.
I realize the training continues with all that is put before you, preparing you somehow. So I can't complain, although the physical struggle with the sesshin was really overpowering at times. It was the training in fortitude and patience, and the training in stillness. I was still. I did sit through a lot of pain, but something important unfolded there. And I was grateful after all.
Appamada is the seat of a universe of care that already has many millions of inhabitants, nurses, teachers, parents, and so on, and it is coexistent with many other universes, most obviously the universe created from the seed survival. The inhabitants of these universes can't comprehend each other. The primary questions in the Appamada universe are, what needs care? Who will care? What does care look like in this situation? How will I care? The incomprehensible pathology in this universe is lack of care. The primary questions in the survival universe are, how can I compete and win in order to survive? Who or what is threatening my survival? What do I need to know or do to survive? The incomprehensible pathology in that universe is lack of concern about survival.
Sorry. Our universes are coexistent. The bees universe is impacted by the survival universe with its pesticides, habitat destruction, and exploitation. The care universe is actually essential to the survival universe, healing its wounded, caring for its children and its elderly. It provides disaster relief, medical care, teaching, storytelling, life-saving scientific research, music, and art. In theory, the survival universe expresses its appreciation by providing the care universe material support and protection from harm. Lately, this compact seemed to be threatened by political storms and the survival universe. But for those in the care universe, the aspiration and the work of care continues. The vows are unbroken.
Well,
Okay.
how do we create a universe? It turns out the instructions really are
Yes.
around us.
This is the last line, so yeah. And then we can read the facing page.
Okay. Our cosmological view of space and time is expanded by the Paramita Sutra far beyond habitual notions and cosmic myths prevalent in any culture, including modern scientific-oriented cultures. In practicing Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva contemplates other world systems beyond this planetary system, an expanse of inhabited worlds, immeasurable in extent, worlds beyond reckoning in number, inconceivable in their essential nature, infinite in the complexity of their life forms, and limitless in the subtlety of their civilizations. The Bodhisattva contemplates the range of past eons in each of these world systems as well.
So then Jess, we'll get back to Jess for the last part.
Such expansive contemplation is more than just a science fiction projection of a vast material universe or a neutral intellectual exercise in pushing back the limits of our habitual world. Rather, it confirms a central principle of Prajnaparamita that states the limitlessly creative power of ontologically transparent manifestation can never be exhausted. In other words, I'm glad there's other words. In other words, no matter how far mind can reach and whatever mind can imagine, the true nature of manifestation is pure presence.
You go ahead and finish that last line.
Okay, yeah. The awakened ones always joyously teach and indicate with every word and gesture the absolute inexhaustibility of pure presence. Mm. Mhm.
So that's the end of the interlude.
I'm just curious, who kind of talked about this idea of the two universes, the survival and care. Is that yours, or is that like Joanne Macy? Or
No, it's me.
okay,
Yeah. It actually, that whole concept came out of this session.
oh, neat.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was asking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas about. So yeah, so then it became really clear to me when they said, the seed of the existing universe is survival, then everything made sense to me. I thought, oh, yeah,
Well, it's neat that survival is I, and care is towards someone else.
right.
I mean, not
Even,
necessarily, but
even caring for yourself. So a person who's in survival mode, they don't even worry about caring about themselves. They're not worrying about care at all.
especially in terms of long term.
Right. But even in short term, it's, yeah, everything becomes a threat to survival. So even traffic slowdown, for example, things like that become a threat in that universe.
Mm.
So that was my, at least that was my uh, understanding out of this, oh, and this is why it's so hard to have difficult conversations across universes, right? We can't converse with a bee. We can't explain to a bee, look, some bad people in this other universe are, spreading pesticides that are causing you to have colony collapse or whatever, like we don't have any way to articulate that in that universe. So the thing that was surprising to me was these universes being coexistent. So they're uh, they interpenetrate each other, right? So they're impacted by each other, but they don't necessarily have any way to communicate about that or what's happening. So people who have extreme empathy, they have the capacity to understand the other universe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the other people in the other universe understand them. So if you're in the universe of care, you have empathic understanding of the suffering of other people, even in the survival universe. But they don't really comprehend what the care means that you're giving them,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. That was just what my understanding that came out of this experience.
Well, uh, like I understand, like, yeah, somebody that has a lot of empathy can kind of understand what's happening in the survival universe. But that article you sent, this is what I was thinking about when it comes to these like survival and care is that I'm pretty sure that both coexist within me, like both universes, and maybe they don't communicate very well, but it's like the empathic, there's sort of an empathy, there's empathic concern, which was like you were saying that it's more like compassion and kind of our care, like directing outward, like what is the care? But there's also some times where we feel, and I feel it sort of kind of immediately, like somebody's situation. I feel this, I feel this internal sensation of like what it's my own sensation, but what they may be experiencing. So I feel that, and then sometimes it can be so overwhelming
Yeah,
that if you give me a way out, I'll take a way out,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this is the problem for people with extreme empathy. They're feeling so much of what the other person feels, it gets overwhelming. Yeah. And earlier I had that experience of overwhelm, and the Buddha was showing me, these vast, vast universes in which there was a tremendous amount of cruelty and suffering, and it just became overwhelming. So I had to, like implore him to stop. Yeah, because you can become paralyzed and disabled by that if you don't understand, oh, my role is to not to feel all of the things that they're feeling, which I actually can't. Um, it's an act of imagination to imagine that
Mhm.
I'm feeling what they're feeling, but to be committed to their well-being and the relief of their suffering, which is what you're doing in your work,
Mhm.
right? So you have to step out of getting swamped by what they're experiencing so that you can function.
Yeah, it's a good reminder of like it's and I think it said in the article like it's a training, I think with a lot of these things, um, these readings and understandings I understand in the moment and then I forget at some point. And so the kind of ongoing training.
Yeah, and it's recursive. So you go back through the Four Noble Truths with a deeper understanding. So each time you encounter these teachings again, it's just like the Buddhists were talking about. This is circular. And each time you're actually going deeper, your appreciation is deeper, your understanding is deeper, your openness is deeper um, each time you encounter it, which is why these things never really get exhausted, so
I was
anyway,
surprised how much he talked about suffering, Buddha.
yeah.
And I mean, it seemed like he could have easily just gone past that. And But
Remember, he's always talking to new audiences too, so, and we have the same issue, which is people coming and going, coming and going. And
I guess there's this thing about, you know, talking to people about where they're at.
yeah, yeah, exactly. In many, the core teachings of the Buddha didn't really change, but he kept offering them. And and he might be talking to a king, or he might be talking to a bunch of villagers, and another bunch of villagers, and another village, but also he articulated in really brilliant rhetorical strategies things in the ways that those audiences, those particular audiences, could understand them. So, yeah, talking about de dependent origination in terms of the skandhas, to talk about a chariot, and you take apart a chariot and you take off the wheels, is it still a chariot? You take off the sides, is it still a chariot? What's the chariotness, if all of the parts get removed? So he knew his followers would understand that image. Yeah. So I think Ann and Kim, you've been here from the beginning of this particular piece, and so my question is still, um, does it seem like this belongs at the end of the first book, which is about teachers, or somewhere else, or should it be left out? Because it's pretty intensely personal. So I don't know if it's worth it to people, to read it.
Well, I think it offers something that isn't offered elsewhere in the book. I mean, I think that speaking of an intensely personal experience is helpful to the book. So I would say it's a good thing to leave in.
And you've been doing a lot of mind stuff
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so nice to have human stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it feels to me like it bridges the two books. So basically the next part of it is going to talk about the universe that got created out of that seed, right? Basically, um, even though Appamada had been in place for quite a while before I was in that intensive, that session. But that's where it was really clear to me. It got really clear to me. And it got really clear to me that absolutely everything we face is training, everything. And once you understand that it's training, you get to ask the question, what do I think this is the training in, right? It may be baffling, it may be upsetting, it may be distressing, it may be joyful, but if you understand it that way, you're less resentful. You're less thinking to yourself, why do I have to deal with this? Or why is this coming up? Or, who the hell sent this? Like you get, oh, yeah, this is very important training that I wouldn't have requested, but has certainly visited itself upon me. And I think it makes you less impatient. You start to go, oh, okay, so this is, as I said to them, how long does this last? And they said, well, it's until you stop asking that. It's kind of like that. But when you have that view, it's like when you're distressed about something, you recognize this distress is evidence of something, and therefore there's a teaching in it. And you may think, I've already had this lesson. I don't need this lesson, as I've thought many times. I actually know this, never mind. But it turns out we have to keep learning it at a deeper level. So
what would your answer be to what is the training in?
it depends on what you're facing. So it's, like I recognize that I'm an impatient person. So traffic is training in patience for me. It's also some training and compassion. So I think I can make things less bad for everybody else, right? I don't have to be agitated and a source of more stress in the whole situation, right? So you start viewing things as situations, and you start seeing what you're contributing to the situation, how you're experiencing the situation. And so I would say it depends. Like, it's always something you you can recognize as training, because it's always something you wish hadn't happened or wasn't happening, you know. Um, and and it's difficult, but it turns out that if you stay with it, that's what the deepening of the learning is, you know. It's That's where it happens. And learning about yourself, learning about other people. um, Most of us map onto other people our own idea about who and what they are, you know. So and we imagine that they're just like us, or they're unfortunately not like us. So um, so we're constantly having to readjust our thinking because another person doesn't have the motives we think they have, or they don't operate in the way that we imagine they should operate, or, you know, there's all kinds of little stumbling blocks there that we run into.
Mm.
But I think if you're really, really open-minded, you see, oh, she thinks about it that way. Oh, I see. You know, like, um, that is completely unexpected to me. And then all of a sudden, your mind is opening. Oh, I can see how she would look at it that way then, if that's her worldview, you know. And it's so difficult because we so don't want to let people alone, you know, like we so want them to like move towards our model. And it's dropping that is a great relief in a way, but also it's so habituated. Like, if only she would, whatever, exercise more, she would feel so much better, you know?
Mm.
And it's so hard to drop that and just open to that person and what they're telling us about their experience, what they're showing us about their experience, and what's under it. So I can't tell you how many times I nagged my mother all the time, you know, like, you live in Rancho Bernardo. It's like Disneyland for old people. And there's everything is level. There's sidewalks, beautiful flowers everywhere. Why don't you just get out and do a little walking, just a little walk, even around the block, even, you know, like, just walk a little. Your street is so no, she would not get out of her chair. She would barely get out of her chair and walk to the kitchen. So, you know, and I just kept thinking she would feel so much better, you know, she'd just be so healthier. And no, you know, she was like a poster child of don'ts. Large glass of vodka, 5 scoops of ice cream before bed, you know, like, it was just like a poster of, don't do this if you want to live a long life. She was unmovable about it, and it was just her way. Nobody was going to tell her anything to do. Mm. But I can, you know, I banged my head against that wall for a long time before I realized this is not going to happen. You know,
Mhm.
I couldn't understand it. I mean, I could not, at that age, I could not get into her head and see, how is this, you know, why are you not even aware of this?
Yeah.
So that was very powerful training.
Mm.
Yeah. So we're so convinced that we know what's right for other people, what's best for other people. We're so convinced. And we may very well be right, but that doesn't serve anything if it's not, you know, something that they can be motivated by.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I think like kind of um yeah, what I mean, one belief that I've held is like, if we think about this as training, that okay, I'll train, I'll learn more, I'll be more A, B, or C, and we'll get to some place, you know? And when you're a kid, that's what is happening. You are growing and your brain is growing and you are learning and you are able to be more like to be more patient, with things. Like you're able to go. And then I think like um with the concussion, it's like it's just a reminder of like, oh no, Like, there's some trainings that are, well, anyways, like whatever, it's not like it's about getting to the top of the mountain, It's like
Right.
it's um I don't
You
know exactly what it's about.
know, you know that Yo-Yo Ma still practices scales every day. He's still in training. There's no place higher for him to go. And it's just this sense of, um, to me, it's like a kind of curiosity in a way, like what is to be learned here? What it's like that kind of curious, not to better myself, but like what is it that to be learned here in this situation? Um, and I'm learning things about myself, but it's not making a better me. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's just giving me greater insight into situations, how people move in situations, how they think about situations, um, and and that is does make things easier. It does make things move more smoothly, but people still have their prickly personalities, and they still have the things that trigger them, and they still have the things that upset them, and for a lot of people, they think that means that their practice is a failure.
Yeah.
It just means that the practice is ongoing. It's it's a path.
Well, that's too why people like Dalai Lama sits 4 hours a day and
Right,
Nali sits 8 hours a day.
right, right. Yeah.
And it's like to me, yeah, maybe it's the just the beauty of being in training and
Yes.
it
Yeah.
being in care, whatever
Yeah.
one's ability is, it's like just being in it, whether you're doing scales or you're doing whatever it is,
For the
like,
love of it. It's really for the love of it.
and in the absolute sense, it doesn't really, like Yo-Yo Ma playing and me playing in the absolute sense isn't so different.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Yeah. It's a really more about wholeheartedness, I think, than it is about anything else. Like, not trying to make something happen or having some end in mind. Um, that's sort of central to it. So Yo-Yo Ma doesn't practice every day in order to get good. He's been playing since he was a child. So he's not trying to practice to be something or to get somewhere, but for the joy of it, because you love that thing that you're doing. You love the expression and experience of it. And then he finds novelty by collaborating with different kinds of artists. That's that's how he gets engaged with, more imagination, more energy, different ideas.
mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe we want to write for a little bit. Usually, Jess, we do a little bit of writing, and then we for about 15 minutes, and then we um, reconnect. Getting my paper out,
Yeah, let me go get something.
paper and writing things. I can't believe that we're coming to the end of April. This doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Hmm. Really, we're so close to July.
I know. I know. It's crazy. See if we get Jess back. How did that go? Have anything you want to share?
I do, but anyone else?
Go ahead.
And this has nothing to do with your book.
That's fine.
I'm thinking about two things right now. One is, how does a relationship function without an abundance of rules and regulations? And the second question is, how does one not get caught in minutia? I want things to flow, not for myself, but for everyone. But there seems sometimes to be dams everywhere. I heard last week that all the dams in the world are changing the rotation of the earth. The three, and then I looked it up, the Three Gorges Dam in China shifted the Earth's axis by 0.8 of an inch. That's how I'm feeling. I'm yearning for a world that flows without any dams. Things just happen without any obstruction, and being caught in minutia. That's the second thing. Is that my responsibility or the minutia's? So especially with minutia being small, I can hardly blame them for my drowning in them. I'm choosing to let me be overburdened in them. In Judaism, you are only supposed to inspect your house for flour before Passover with one candle, not with a torch, which is two candles with the wicks twisted together.
Mm.
That's what I could do with the minutia. Notice it, but not drown in it. Some should just be left alone, out of sight, out of mind. I was wondering how these two things
They're
connect.
well, they're definitely related to each other.
They are, yeah, I realized that as I wrote.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good connection.
And it's all about relaxing. I mean, not that I'm doing it, but
But you aspire to.
I aspire to. As this one rabbi said, he said it's not that you don't follow the commandments, you don't follow them yet. So
Yeah.
I love that word, yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of Alfie Cohen saying in schools, we should only have 2 grades, A and incomplete. I think that's such a great idea, like you just keep working at it until it's complete.
Until you get the merit badge, and then you go on to the next one.
Right, then you go on to the next one. Yeah. No, that's lovely. That's a really subtle distinction and connection you made.
Between minutia and
The concept of many rules and regulations and relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
flow. Someone was talking about the movie Flow, which didn't seem to be about the other idea of flow, but I was thinking about flow.
Yeah.
Really, what we want is flow.
Yeah.
And how is that achieved in an organization?
Yeah. I remember when Ben was in maybe 3rd or 4th grade, a new principal came to his elementary school, and the new principal issued a list of rules that was 5 spaced typed pages. And I'm like, these are kindergarten through 5th grade kids. And she's, and the teacher tried to defend her and said, well, there are a lot of instances where, it's really important to have rules. And I said, you only need 3 rules for kids, like don't do things that are going to hurt you. Don't do things that are going to hurt the environment or other kids. And don't get in the way of the teaching. You only need 3 rules. And they had rules like you could not use the bathroom except before school or after school. Kindergartners. So so Ben's teacher said to me, well, no, it's really important to have rules because, the other day I had a child stay after class to empty the aquarium in the classroom. And so, he had a bucket and a scoop and so he was perfectly fine doing it. And so I went to the office to pick something up and I came back and there was a bunch of teachers around my room, which is something you never want to see. And there's the kid with blood spurting out of his arm because what had he done? He had decided it would be faster to pick up the aquarium and tip it into the bucket. And what, of course, happened? It slipped, broke, and cut him, you know. And I just looked at her and I said, and what rule would have prevented that? So, yeah, so it's like all those rules and regulations are questionable, I'd say, when they impede the flow, like a dam impedes the flow of the relating. It's such a good observation. Yeah. What about you, Anne? Any thoughts? You're muted for one thing.
I'm muted because I have nothing to say. I, well, I didn't really get anything written. I was actually reading and thinking about the saying by um, 10K. 10K?
Uh-huh.
See with your eyes, smell with your nose, taste with your tongue. Nothing in the universe is hidden. What else would you have me say? I just love that saying. I
Yeah.
just, um, yeah. And
Maybe
I
we should.
think for me, it speaks to those of us that have a hard time expressing ourselves,
Uh-huh. Right.
articulating.
Right. Well, and what else is needed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a question I ask myself all the time, like, does the world really need another book? Like, probably not.
Yeah, I was talking to Joel today about that very thing, and we were having kind of a philosophical conversation about some part of the Genjo koan. I just kind of stopped and I said, is this necessary? Is it helpful? I like it. I enjoy it. I mean, it's pleasurable to me to think about these things and talk about these things, but is it actually anything more than, should I be thinking that this is actually having any effect, or is it just like me eating a bowl of ice cream?
Well, why would it need to have an effect? If like eating a bowl of ice cream, it's pleasurable in and of itself
Yeah,
and nourishing in and of itself. It's part of our relationality, having these conversations together about the things that we cherish or the things that we're learning or the things that are important or the things that excite us or the things that demoralize us or, like it's part of the relationality of our practice, really.
yeah.
So not as a goal of something, it's not trying to um, be instrumental in some way.
Mm,
It's like, very much like a bowl of ice cream, something that is very satisfying to both people. And I think does provide some encouragement in the path. Like, this is worth doing. This is worth talking about. This is worth thinking about. This is worth studying. This is worth practicing.
yeah, I mean, I sort of, uh, it brought to the fore the bigger question of study. I mean,
Right,
there's 10 case words about, here's what you do. You do
right.
what you're doing, and that's it, and you don't have to say anything else. But then what is study about? I mean, I know that that's part of our practice.
And it's been part of practice all the way back, like all the way back to the first council studying the Buddha's words. It's always been a complement to sitting meditation. In every monastery and every training facility, no matter how much they rail against books and, words, um,
Yeah.
ultimately the teachings are conveyed that way. Um, so but I think what they're really railing against is our attachment to that as somehow being instrumental. So if we
Right.
believe it's serving a goal, or we're trying to, like argue someone into something or, make something happen, then that's the use of words that I think they are really, um, sort of opening our minds to the limitations of that. That's
Yeah.
that's not direct experience in some ways, talking about the experience. But
Back to drowning.
yeah, but the discussion itself is part of the experience. So
Yeah. 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 You have to have firewood to make a fire. You have to have something.
yeah, and I think practice without any study is a very sterile enterprise.
Hmm.
You know, there's nothing joining your mind stream. There's just what's already there.
Hmm.
And that's how we get stuck.
Hmm.
We were talking, and after Zazen, I was leading that, and about, well, I've just been hearing driving there about Dogen saying that Buddha said that all you need to do is Zazen, and then remembering that he also, told Ananda that 100% of it is spiritual friendship. So there's that, and then there's this thing of study,
Right.
like
And
three things that are,
that, yeah, that's the paradox,
yeah, we in fact we called it that.
Yeah, that's the paradox. And the ability to hold paradox in mind without
Well,
making
I
it
told them about Suzuki Roshi saying if it's not a paradox, it's not true.
probably not true. Yeah. Yeah. So many of the things that we think we can nail down to a single answer or solution really are inherently paradoxical.
Mm.
But we think that that's something wrong, that if something is paradoxical, that means it's wrong. Either our thinking about it is wrong or our framing of the situation is wrong or something, is wrong about it. Like we will say to people if they say, well, I don't, I want to go to live in Cincinnati. I want to stay here also, when we say to people, well, that's paradoxical, like it becomes like an accusation, like that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
But really so many things are actually that way. So
I have something to share.
great.
Oh, all right, here we go. Uh, what is the lesson that my neck hurts? What is the training? Recalling that I'm vulnerable, recalling this is fleeting, a bubble in a stream. Then I remember Ram Dass in his garden. There's a video of him saying, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream." Uh, the goal is not for things to be better, it is of the act itself, not the level of difficulty to increase, but to be in training, to be in care, to be in practice. Joy exists in the present, the abundant present. Uh, the container for it is all encompassing, is that equanimity. I strive for wellness, physical health, mental health, reduction of anxiety. Um, non-striving is the training, caring for self and other, and acceptance of anxiety, of neck pain, all of it. Perhaps this is the way. The obstacle to the way becomes the way. That's all I got.
So you wrote yourself into understanding. You started with a bunch of questions, and you wrote yourself into understanding and insight. It's great.
Yeah, just processing what we talked about,
Yeah,
and just that helped to have some writing time.
absolutely.
I think it is circular because I don't think the embodied deep understanding, I don't think I have that like in relation to this, but
Mm,
You keep circling back and it keeps getting, like you will get the teachings until you've got it, and then it's just deepening and deepening from there. Yeah.
mm,
We all have an intellectual understanding of impermanence, but every time you really sit with that and really understand it more deeply, it's just that's part of that training is you're revisiting the same supposedly concept, but it looks different. It looks different when you're thinking about an aging parent, or when you're watching a child, or when you're watching your own breath, or so yeah, that's why practice is so valuable, because you're essentially, like putting yourself in the same frame, in the same situation over and over and over and over again, right?
Mhm.
You're sitting down, you're getting quiet, you're not talking or using your phone or doing any of the things we normally do.
Hey, is there a phrase in Zen tradition about effort without striving or effort without expectation or
Yeah, it's in the Zazen Shin, you know,
Zazen? I knew it was
effort without desire.
effort without desire.
Yeah. And I think about that a lot, because when I was teaching Zen rhetoric on campus, my students would always say, well, if you didn't have desire, you wouldn't want to do anything. You just wouldn't do anything at all. And so that concept of having effort without desire was foreign to them, which I understand a lot in young people, like they can't imagine being propelled by anything but the desire to make money or the desire to have kids or the desire, they think nothing would happen without that. They literally believe that.
Yeah, yeah.
But as you mature, you begin to see um, there are many, many ways that you bring energy to a situation where you don't have desire, right? You're not trying to make something happen.
I like effort without ambition, like in art.
Yeah, yeah. And there's that one piece in Joko's book about expectation versus aspiration. So
Mm,
aspiration is not a desire, it's an energy. It's more like it's not attached to something outside yourself. It's a more like a blossoming from within. It's just like flowing from within. And so and like a parent caring for a child, for example, not trying to um, produce some outcome. You're just engaged in this activity wholeheartedly. Like there's just nothing else that is important to you. It's out of your aspiration um, for care.
mm,
And that's one of the reasons I think care is such a good way to talk about what we do, because to care with someone or take care with someone or something is not to have an outcome in mind. It's really to be um, engaged in the ways in which we can make each other's lives better in some way, less suffering, you know, more connection. But there's not like some outcome that's going to come out of it. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. I think care in general. Yeah, that one aspect of care. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's-
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what people um, talk about as care is really fairly egoic. Um,
Mm,
so we're not talking about that kind of care, you know. And it's often an imperative of some kind, you know, like, well, you have to care about the children who are starving in Africa,
mm,
right? And so there's a um, judgment associated with it.
Yes, it's a positive quality we should all cultivate. We should
Right,
all, yeah.
right. Yeah. And so, so then it's coming from an egoic place where
Mm,
it's me imposing my will on the world.
mm,
But also wanting to be a better person, wanting to show yourself off as a better person.
Right, or appear as a better person. Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to Nate about this Christian prayer, which is "Let me be an instrument of thy will," and how utterly destructive that is, because it means that you do whatever you are going to do. It means imposing your will on the world, and the assertion that this is God's will. So a lot of the damage that's been done has been done in the name of supposedly God's will.
mm. But on the other hand, I can see it as wanting to not have it be my personal will, wanting to be the will of, say, we'll put in the words Buddha nature. Let me be the instrument of Buddha nature. No.
No, in Buddhism, I would say, let wisdom and compassion flow. It's not an imposition of will. So part of the problem is
Mm,
there's a difference between will and willingness, right?
mm-hmm.
It's really about this impulse, which is really a controlling impulse,
Mm.
you know, even if it comes from God, God's will, like who's going to determine that, right? Well, I'm going to,
Yeah, there's always that question, and yeah. I mean,
right? Yeah. Or maybe somebody's going to tell me and it's going to be their will. Um, but
yeah.
it's about will, which is like, to me, is like an imposition of force onto the situation,
Mm,
right? It's
yeah,
not, it's not flowing with the situation. You know, it's about the will.
yeah,
So it's God's will that these, black people are put in ships and created over to the United States as slaves. That's how they described it.
right, right, yeah.
So anyway, we're past our time. We have to
Uh,
stop.
yeah.
This is very interesting. Um, thank you so much. And um, I hope you either go ahead with the Vimalakirti or with the returning to the koans, which are so delicious. So yeah. All right. Maybe Kim, you might want to send out an announcement to the Sangha so they can tune in next week.
Yeah, maybe Ann and I can talk and then we can decide.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to have some kind of a uh, discussion about what we have so far in the book, and then next week, and then what we plan to do next?
Well, I kind of like to just move on.
Okay.
What do you think, Ann?
Yeah, that seems fine.
Um, I think either way has its goods and its bads. I mean, I think that people might like to sit and talk about, this was my experience doing this reading,
Yeah.
and this is the
Okay,
general feeling I took away from it, and um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and spend a little time talking about Vimalakirti or the koans.
Yeah. What's upcoming?
okay,
Yeah. Okay, that seems good. So I will see you next week then.
okay.
Um, and I'll be interested, I know this is really, well, anyway, I feel like this whole reading of this draft is really self-indulgent in a way, because I'm taking up all of your time and attention and with this, and I'm just trying to get it sorted out. Maybe it should be like 50 pages long, instead of 450 pages long. Maybe it should be a pamphlet, like just a pamphlet.
A pamphlet.
Oh, little chat book.
I think ChatGPT could turn it into a pamphlet, actually.
I mean, it could do, yeah, that's the amazing. You can make this 2 pages, make this 5 pages, make this
Right.
1 page.
Make it 250 words. Okay.
I saw yesterday, I was looking, no, not yesterday, a few days ago, I was looking for a book, and then someone else had published, a much shorter version of the book.
There are books like that where there's a kind of a condensed version that's
The
published.
executive summary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So maybe someone will do that for this book. It won't be me, but someone might do it. Maybe Ben's recommending Claude instead of ChatGPT, so maybe Claude can do it. All right.
Right.
Great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Night.